Hi, I'm Debbie Brown, and today I'm going to show you how to quilt ribbons with your walking foot on your home sewing machine. As all of my tutorials this year, I'm practicing on a crate quilt. It's a quilt made to donate to the animal shelter. My local animal shelter has requested quilts that are 14 by 20 inches, so I've made mine from scrap 2.5-inch squares, 7 across and 10 down. The thread I'm using today is called Fabulex. It is a high sheen 40 weight thread from Wonderfill, and I'm going to use two colors. I'm going to use Hint of Lime and in the pinks. You can do this one color or two colors or as many colors as you like. I'm going to be starting with Hint of Lime, but since I'm changing thread colors, I'm using one bobbin thread color, and that is a gray from Deco Bob. It is an 80 weight bobbin thread, so one bobbin is definitely going to last for my entire quilt. I have seams in this quilt between my 2.5-inch squares, and I'm going to be using those as guidelines for where I stitch my ribbons. And the ribbons are going to be made by me free motion quilting wiggles around one of my long seam lines. I'm going to start in the binding, the batting area, so I can just stitch there. I don't need to worry about any knots. I have bands on my hands to help me control the fabric because I will be turning the fabric. I have my stitch length is 2.8. I like it a little under 3 millimeters, however you prefer it, and my feed dogs are up. I'm going to start by stitching onto the quilt. And now I'm going to try and stitch a little to the left of the line and wiggle over a little to the right of the line. And using this seam line as my guide, I'm going to do a free motion ribbon. I'm going to stitch off the quilt into the batting, and on my Handy Quilter stitch machine I have a scissors button, so I'll just cut the thread. Now that I have one ribbon stitched down one seam line, I'm going to stitch all of the seam lines with this same thread color. Now that I've finished stitching all of the ribbons in one direction, my quilt is actually done. The purpose of quilting is to hold the 3 layers of your quilt together. So you can get this far and call your quilt done, but to add a little extra brightness to it, I'm going to add a second color. So let me change my thread to the pink. Now that my machine is threaded with pink thread, I'm ready to stitch a second ribbon. I can sense that some of you are getting a little nervous thinking you have to retrace the first ribbon perfectly. You don't. I prefer mine to be free motion and uneven. I think it gives them a really nice random look on the quilt, so don't even try to make it perfect. Don't try to match the first ribbon. I'm just going to start stitching and see where this second ribbon lands. I love how that looks on my quilt. So I'm going to go make more uneven pink ribbons over top of each of my uneven green ribbons for the rest of the quilt. I finished stitching all of the pink waves ribbons and all of the green ribbons on my quilt, and they are all uneven, all overlapping, and I love them. This simple pattern isn't the perfect pattern for every quilt, but it is the perfect pattern for some quilts. Maybe some you already have pieced waiting to be quilted. Piece yourself a quick crate quilt, practice this ribbon technique, and finish one of your unfinished quilt tops. If you enjoyed today's video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss out on a single one of my weekly tutorials. Head on over to debbiebrownquilts.com where you can sign up for my newsletter and also shop for machine quilting supplies. Thanks for visiting. Happy quilting!